He was running. Not from someone else, not from the world, but from himself. Every step he took on that cracked pavement echoed a lifetime of mistakes, of choices that never got a second chance. You could see it in his eyes, this weight, this fire that no one could put out. It wasn't anger. Not really. It was something darker, sharper, a hollow that had been carved into him by years of silence, by moments he wished he could erase but never could. And still he kept moving, hoping maybe that the city lights would blur the shadows enough for him to forget. But the shadows, they don't let go. Not here. Not ever. He carried memories that burned hotter than the sun itself. The kind that make your hands shake when you remember. People think they know pain until they see it reflected in someone who's lived every mistake like a scar etched into their skin. This wasn't about losing battles, it was about losing himself. The man you see laughing in the streets, cracking jokes, fooling everyone around, that guy? He's just the mask. Underneath, there's a storm no one's prepared to face. And guy, he's standing right at the edge of it. He's staring at the abyss and, in the quiet moments, he admits it, he never forgave himself. Not once. Not ever. And that's the secret. The one he never tells anyone. Not because he's proud, not because he's strong, but because it's dangerous. The truth about what haunts him, what drives him, what keeps him awake when the rest of the world sleeps so peacefully, it's not what anyone expects. It's messy, twisted, and painfully real. You think you get it? You don't. Not yet. There's a part of him that even he can't reach, a corner of his mind locked tight, and the key, well, it's buried in a story he's been too afraid to share. So here's the thing. Everyone's running from something, right? We all have that one ghost, that one memory that lingers no matter how many nights we spend pretending it's gone. But guy, he's different. Because he's caught in a loop of his own making, haunted by choices that scream louder than any failure, any regret. And somewhere in that chaos, somewhere in that silence, there's a clue, how to survive it, how to make peace with it, how to finally let go. Or at least, how to stand without breaking while the storm rages inside. And that's what we're diving into today. Not just the surface story you've seen, not the battles and the wins, but the shadow beneath it all. The moments nobody shows, the thoughts nobody dares to speak out loud, the kind of pain that makes you question if there's ever really a way forward. By the end of this, you'll see why Guy isn't just a fighter. He's a man who teaches us something we all need to learn, in ways we weren't ready to admit. But here's the catch, the answer isn't obvious. The truth, well, it's waiting. And it might just turn everything you think you know upside down. If you're still here, it means you get it. You feel that weight too, don't you? That gnawing at your chest, the memories that whisper when the world goes quiet. That's why this place exists, you're not alone in it. Every story we dig into, every shadow we explore, it's for people like you, people who felt the edge of their own mind and wondered if anyone else could really understand. And that's why, you should hit that subscribe. Not just, 'cause I say so, but because you belong here. You belong in the space where we pull the curtain back, where the pain makes sense, where the scars are more than just marks, they're lessons. When you subscribe, you're not just clicking a button. You're stepping into the same dark corners we're about to explore, side by side. You're making a promise to yourself, that you'll see the truth, even when it's ugly. Even when it hurts. Because the stories we tell, they don't stop here. They dig deeper. They twist, they haunt, they reveal things you weren't ready to face. And I promise the next one's coming, and it's gonna shake you in ways you didn't expect. So stay close. Be part of this. Don't miss the next layer, the next secret, the next shadow that could change the way you see everything. You're not just watching, you're walking this path with us. And if you step away now, you'll never see what's waiting in the dark. But if you stay, if you let yourself dive in, you'll understand something most people never do. You'll see the truth behind the fire, the pain behind the mask, the human behind the legend. So hit subscribe. Stay here. Watch it all unfold. The story's far from over, and you deserve to see what comes next. You've watched him fight, haven't you? Seen the way he threw himself at the world, like every punch, every scream, could erase something he couldn't even name. And you think you understand him. You think you see the anger, the fire in his eyes, the fists and the shouts aimed at everything that dared cross his path. But you don't. Not yet. Because here's the thing, the world he's fighting against, it's not really the world at all. It's the reflection of him. Every villain he clashes with, every obstacle he swears is out there, tangible and real, is just a mirror showing the parts of himself he refuses to face. You follow that? The external chaos is nothing but the echo of the storm inside. And every time he lands a hit, every time he thinks he's winning, it's just a pause, a temporary anesthesia over something far more dangerous. The truth hiding beneath the surface. You feel it too, don't you? That pull in your chest when you remember something you wish you could erase. Something that makes your hands tremble or your stomach twist when nobody's looking. That's what he's feeling, magnified, every single day. And the thing is, he doesn't even realize it most of the time. Because there's a shield, right? A wall made of rage. Anger becomes the anesthetic. You throw it at the world and suddenly the pain inside feels quieter. Just for a moment. You know how that works? You've done it, maybe in smaller doses. You shout, you blame, you fight, and the world blurs while the wound beneath keeps thumping like a drum no one else can hear. But here's where it twists. The anger doesn't erase the pain. It hides it. It buries it deeper. And what he doesn't know, what he's too proud to see, is that the thing he hates out there is just the shadow of himself he refuses to forgive. And that's why you can't look away. Because you know it too, don't you? That invisible enemy, the one that makes you lash out, the one that twists your decisions, your mindset, your very sense of who you are. You think you're in control. You think you're fighting what's real. But the impact of the truth, it hits different. It creeps into the quiet moments. It waits in the cracks of your mind. He's teaching you without words, showing you through the bruises on his own soul that fighting externally is just the first act. The real war, it's inside. And every transformation, every choice, every step you think is progress, it's just another move on a board you barely understand. He's haunted by his own decisions. By the moments he acted before thinking, by the ones he didn't act at all. You can see it in the tremor when he clenches his fists. You can hear it in the pause before his voice rises. And the thing you can't unsee, the secret buried in the way he moves, in the way he breathes, it's that the rage you witness isn't random. It's a mask. A protective layer that hides a truth he can't even admit to himself yet. And you feel it creeping into your chest too, don't you? That quiet, insistent itch, that question that won't let you go. What part of yourself are you fighting every day without realizing it? It's subtle at first. A flash of recognition. Then the realization hits. The shadow he faces out there, it mimics the shadow inside you. And suddenly the story isn't just his anymore. It's yours. You feel the pulse of his pain, the hesitation before the next move, the calculated strikes masking desperation. And while you sit there watching, part of you wants to turn away. Because the truth, it's raw. It's uncomfortable. It's revealing the parts of your own mind you've tried to ignore, the mental battles no one talks about, the doubts and fears and regrets that you hide even from yourself. And that's where the revelation sneaks in. The thing he's been running from, the thing the rage was anesthetizing all along, it isn't a person, a rival, or even the world. It's the memory he refused to forgive, the decisions he can't undo, the vulnerability he buried under layers of anger and action. And now, as you watch, you begin to understand how fragile that mental landscape really is, how easy it is for a single unresolved truth to shape the trajectory of a life. How every choice, every reaction, every whisper of self-deception can echo louder than the loudest battle outside. And you wonder, if you were him, if you were caught in that loop, could you even see the enemy clearly? Or would you just keep fighting shadows, mistaking them for reality? And here's the twist, the thing that slithers into your mind when you least expect it. The rage, the fury, the confrontations, they're not the problem. They're the symptom. And the invisible fight, the one nobody else can witness, the one that keeps him awake at night, this is where the story truly lives. The real stakes, the mental and emotional toll, the quiet devastation of a man standing alone against his own history, that's what shapes him. That's what makes every revelation, every small victory, every hidden defeat matter. And it's that subtle, almost imperceptible layer that makes you reflect. The battles you fight outwardly, how many of them are just mirrors? How many are shadows of the parts of yourself you're not brave enough to face? You can almost feel it, can't you? The chill creeping along your spine, the tightening in your chest. And the strange, addictive comfort in that fear. Because it's safe here. You're not really him. You're just witnessing, reflecting, imagining. But the curiosity, it pulls you in. You want to see what happens when the mask slips. When the rage fades and the invisible enemy steps into the light. You want to know the truth hidden beneath years of anger and self-deception. You want to understand the impact, the transformation, the revelation he never told anyone, and maybe, just maybe, you want to see how it could echo in your own life. And so you stay, watching, feeling, waiting, knowing that every subtle motion, every pause, every heartbeat is a hint at a truth too dangerous to reveal too soon. That behind the punches, the confrontations, the smoke of his fury, there's a human being standing on the edge of himself. And while you can't step into his shoes, you can step closer, inch by inch, into understanding the hidden battlefield that defines him, that shapes the mental landscape of anyone who's ever faced the shadow inside. The question lingers, unspoken. When the mask comes off, what will the invisible enemy reveal? Not just about him, but about you? You ever get that feeling, that moment where the world suddenly feels thinner? Like the colors fade just a little, the laughter sounds hollow, and the air itself seems heavier than it should? That's the place he found himself, the first crack that no one noticed. You might think it was small, maybe even insignificant, a day that didn't matter to anyone but him, but that's where the void began. You can almost see it, right? The instant when something that should have felt safe, normal, inevitable, just didn't. And he felt it slip away, the certainty, the meaning, the thing that made all the chaos worth enduring. It's subtle, easy to miss, but it's powerful. It whispers, and once it whispers, you can't ignore it. He'd been pushing forward like always, but that push felt different. Every step heavier than the last, every breath a reminder of something lost. You can sense it too, don't you? That knot in your chest when you realize a path you thought was solid suddenly disappears beneath your feet. That's how it was for him. And it wasn't about being defeated by others, it wasn't about being weak in the traditional sense. It was about being confronted with the truth that life doesn't bend to your expectations. That sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the universe doesn't hand you what you think you earned. And when that first fracture hits, it's not dramatic. It doesn't scream. It seeps in. Quiet, almost invisible, but it gnaws. It reshapes you. He learned something in that instant. Something dangerous. That survival doesn't always come from strength. Sometimes it comes from pride, stubbornness, and a kind of instinctive defiance. The kind where you convince yourself that everything's fine, that you're in control, that the weight doesn't exist, until it presses too hard. And when it does, you can feel the edges of your own mind fray. You can feel the gap between what you want to believe and what you know is true. And he did. He felt it deeply. That's when the pride confused itself with survival. He told himself he was fine, that he could handle it, that no one else needed to see the cracks. And you know what? On the outside he looked unstoppable. But inside he was searching. Searching for something he couldn't name, couldn't reach, couldn't admit even existed. The first frustration was tiny. A word unspoken, a door closed, a moment ignored. But in that moment he realized something that would follow him for years. The world doesn't give meaning for free. You have to carve it out. And when you can't, when it slips through your fingers like smoke, the emptiness doesn't scream, it waits. It waits for you to notice it. And when you do, you realize that what you thought was weakness, maybe it's not weakness at all. Maybe it's a kind of pursuit. A search. A flicker of understanding that something's missing, and the only way to find it is to dive into the spaces most people avoid. You can almost feel him there, right? That hesitation, that tremor in the hands, that shallow inhale before the next step. It's not fear, not exactly. It's recognition. The understanding that the world as he knew it had shifted, that he was alone in ways he hadn't been before, and that every decision from here on out would carry the weight of that moment. And yet he kept moving. Because the void doesn't kill you. Not immediately. It teaches you. It forces you to confront the truth hidden beneath every interaction, every choice, every heartbeat. The impact of that realization is subtle, but it accumulates. Every passing day shapes the mental landscape differently. Every glance, every confrontation, every success or failure, it leaves a mark, and the void waits patiently in the background, ready to remind you what you've lost, or what you've yet to find. And that's where the mental game begins. Where every instinct, every reaction, every emotional decision is colored by that early fracture. You see it in him, the way he hesitates before speaking, the way he measures the weight of each move, the way pride and survival collide like tectonic plates. And it's not obvious. The world sees only a fighter, a man of action, a hero or a brute depending on who's watching. But beneath that, beneath every punch thrown, every battle chosen, every word left unsaid, there's a labyrinth of thought and feeling, a maze built from that first emptiness. That's where the transformation starts. That's where the subtle manipulations of mind, the shaping of decisions, the crafting of a mentality designed to endure, to survive, to hide, all of it originates. And while you sit there watching, feeling, you realize that the void isn't punishment. It's a teacher. Cruel one, sure. But a teacher nonetheless. It shows you the weight of truth, the edge of regret, the limits of pride. And in the same instant it sparks curiosity. You want to know what he's searching for. You want to understand the missing piece that has haunted him silently for years. And you sense that what looks like anger, what looks like indifference, it's just another mask. Another layer hiding the subtle, painful lessons of that first fracture. Because once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. And once you feel it, you start questioning your own path, your own voids, your own hidden fractures that shape the choices you make. He's standing at the edge of that emptiness and you can feel it reaching for you too. The void teaches patience, persistence, and the kind of introspection most people avoid. It whispers about decisions, mental transformations, hidden truths, and the subtle impact of every moment you let pass without reflection. You start noticing the patterns, the small betrayals of expectation, the quiet reveals that change the way you see every action, every intention, every heartbeat. And while it seems he's lost, there's purpose buried in the hollow. A type of search disguised as weakness. A silent journey that promises revelations, but only if you can withstand the tension, the fear, the discomfort of looking too closely. And so you sit with it. The knowledge that meaning is fragile, that pride can be a lifeline, that emptiness can teach as much as it wounds. You feel the pull, the quiet curiosity, the empathy, and the awareness that what he's facing isn't over. That the hollow, the void, the subtle fractures of self, they linger, ready to shape every move, every heartbeat, every mental choice. And somewhere deep inside, the understanding begins to settle. The search, the transformation, the truth hidden beneath layers of pride, rage, and survival instincts. It's only just beginning to reveal itself. You can feel it, can't you? That simmering tension in your chest, the way every wrong glance, every word that cuts just a little too deep, sets a fire under your skin. That's where he lives now. The void isn't quiet anymore. It whispers, then roars, then demands. And he answers. With every lash, every strike, every calculated move, he feeds it. The anger becomes a pulse, a rhythm, a heartbeat he can almost control. You watch him thinking, damn, he's gaining strength. He's focused. He's sharp. He's alive in a way that seems almost enviable. And part of you wants that too. That clarity, that intensity, that sense of identity carved from fire and pain. But here's the thing about fire. It consumes first, refines later. And he doesn't see it yet. Not fully. You notice it though. That subtle tremor when he pauses, the way his fists tighten before he even understands why. The transformation is intoxicating. The mental shift is almost hypnotic. Rage isn't just an emotion anymore. It's a tool, a compass, a lens through which he sees the world. Decisions sharpen. Focus intensifies. Every movement has weight, every glance carries intent. He begins to feel powerful, untouchable, like the very energy coursing through him is proof that he's finally found a place to stand. But beneath the thrill, beneath the illusion of control, there's a fracture widening that he can't measure yet. You know that part of yourself, right? That part that watches, curious, knowing the high of letting anger take the wheel, but sensing something darker waiting at the end of the ride? That's what's happening here. The rage doesn't give him freedom. It gives him momentum. It feeds his identity, yes, but it also begins to write the rules of a prison he can't see. Every action he takes in the name of strength is a chain linking him tighter to the very thing he thinks he's mastering. You feel it too, how easy it is to confuse movement with progress, impulse with strategy, reaction with decision. And you watch him, almost envying the focus, almost craving the rawness, but knowing deep down that every pulse of power has a shadow trailing it. The impact is subtle at first. A hesitation, a glance that lingers too long on someone he could crush. A smile that doesn't reach his eyes. You notice the shift, the micro changes in mental state, the slight alterations in demeanor that reveal the cost. The rage sharpens, yes, but it also isolates. It convinces him that survival means domination, that control equals mastery, that the world exists only as a challenge to be crushed. And while it fuels him, while it shapes his mentality into something formidable, it also buries the truth, the cost of this power, the weight of this focus, the unseen toll of becoming what he fights to hide. And here's the twist, the revelation that creeps up like a shadow in the corner of your vision. The very energy he believes is freedom, the very drive he thinks is his salvation, is also his cage. You feel it in your gut, that dissonance, that subtle tension, the knowledge that the ascent has a price he can't yet calculate. Every strike, every yell, every act of precision, it's a trade. And while he seems unstoppable, while the world might see him as carved from power itself, you watching understand that what's building isn't mastery, it's obsession. A slow tightening of chains disguised as control. A spiral where strength and vulnerability are indistinguishable. You can almost step inside his mind, can't you? Feel the adrenaline like electricity under your skin, see the clarity like a laser cutting through the fog, sense the pride swelling in his chest. And yet, under it all, you notice the tremor of uncertainty, the fleeting doubt that he dismisses too quickly. That hesitation, that microsecond where he questions his own impulse before diving in, it's the first crack in the armor. The first echo that maybe, just maybe, The very thing giving him identity is the same thing beginning to undo him. You feel that pulse, right? The addictive rhythm of rage, the hypnotic pull of power, and the creeping awareness that the ascent has a shadow you can't escape. And that's where the subtle brilliance of this stage lies. It's intoxicating. It's visceral. It's the kind of transformation that makes you lean forward in your chair, wanting to see the next move, the next strike, the next decision. But while you're caught in that thrill, you begin to notice the truth hidden beneath the surface. The truth that the fire giving him power also blinds him, that the identity carved from anger is both armor and cage, and that every revelation, every impact, every subtle manipulation of the world around him carries consequences he's too absorbed to measure. And you realize, this isn't a story about winning. Not yet. It's about the delicate, dangerous balance between control and surrender, between mastery and obsession, between the thrill of identity and the cost of becoming enslaved to it. And the thing is, you start to see yourself in it, don't you? That same hunger for focus, the same craving for clarity, the same seductive pull of power. You feel it inside you as much as you feel it in him. The draw of anger as a tool, the temptation of letting the impulse lead, the whisper of transformation hiding behind every decision. And while you think you're safe on the sidelines, you realize that witnessing his ascent is a mirror, a reflection, a warning. The same momentum that fuels him could consume anyone. And in that realization, you begin to understand the delicate stakes, the invisible threads of consequence that stretch behind every choice, every act, every heartbeat. And so he moves forward, faster now, sharper, more precise. The rage fuels him, shapes him, defines him. But beneath it all, the subtle cracks widen. You feel them in your chest as you watch, in the way your thoughts trace the spiral he's stepping into. And just as you think you've measured it, just as you think the path is clear, the next move arrives, unseen, unpredictable. A micro-revelation, a flicker of doubt, a subtle truth that changes everything without him noticing yet. And that's the pull, the tension, the hypnotic curiosity that keeps you leaning in, feeling, reflecting, sensing that what seems like ascension might just be the beginning of a descent. You ever feel that? The kind of weight that sits on your chest and won't let go, the memory that flickers in your mind like a broken neon sign you can't ignore? I want you to pause for a second and think about it, right now while it's still raw. What's the one thought, the one flicker that hits you when you see him move through all that rage, all that fire, all that hollow? I want you to put it into words. Not for me, not for anyone else, but for yourself. Type it down. Let it out. One line. One truth. One confession. Does it make you angry? Sad? Curious? Maybe a mix of all three? And here's the thing, you're not alone in that. Every word you write, every memory you let surface, every small desabaffo, it matters. It becomes part of this space we're building together, this ritual of facing the shadows we all carry. So ask yourself, when you look at him, when you feel the pull of the void he's walking through, what do you see in yourself? Do you see strength or fracture? Control or chaos? And what's the truth you've been holding back even from yourself? I want you to write it, even if it's a single phrase. A whisper, a memory, a word that sticks in your chest. Something that makes you shiver a little when you read it. Because here's the secret, your voice shapes the story too. Your words create a ripple, a little echo of understanding in a world that feels like it's always rushing past. And the people who read it later, they'll feel it too. They'll know they're not the only ones wrestling with these shadows, these fissures, these choices that haunt like ghosts. So ask yourself, when he clenches his fists, when he moves through that rage, when the world seems to blur around him, what would you write in the moment if no one else could see it? Would it be a confession? A thought you've never dared speak? Or a simple acknowledgement, I see it too. I feel it too. And that's enough. That's how this story grows, how the ritual works, how the hidden truths surface from the silence. Type it down. Share a line. Leave your mark on this space. Not to impress, not to compete, just to exist alongside everyone who's feeling the same pull, the same tension, the same quiet fear and fascination. One phrase is all it takes to join the ritual, to show that even in the darkest corners, someone understands, someone notices, someone listens. And as you do, you'll see the pattern, the ripple, the little truth that binds us together in these stories. So go on, one line, one thought, one flicker of your mind facing the shadow. And while you do, keep feeling it, keep sensing it, because the journey isn't over. The void isn't done speaking. The fire isn't done teaching. And your words, your small, honest words, they're part of the pulse that carries this story forward, quietly, invisibly, with the same weight, the same impact, the same unspoken revelations. You can see it, can't you? That moment where it all seems like victory, like the world is finally bending to his will. He's at the peak now. Every fight, every push, every calculated strike has brought him here. And you watch thinking, damn, he's made it. He's unstoppable. But then you notice it, the quiet, almost imperceptible tension under the surface. The way his chest tightens when the applause fades. The way the victories don't echo like they used to. The peak isn't freedom. It's a cage. A golden cage, yeah, but a cage nonetheless. And you feel it too. That subtle weight pressing down, the sharp edge of knowing that everything he thought he conquered is just another layer of the prison closing in. The rage that once fueled him, now it haunts him. It whispers in the dark, drags him back to the hollow corners of his own mind. Every triumph is hollow. Every recognition, every moment of glory, it's like a mask hiding the loneliness he refuses to name. You see it in the way he pauses before speaking, the way he scans the room, almost searching for something that isn't there. And in that, you catch yourself thinking, maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've chased something that promised strength, only to realize it was a chain disguised as a gift. That's the cruel irony. The very thing that lifts you, that makes you feel alive, also confines you. And here's where it gets subtle but sharp. Stay with me until the end, because what happens next isn't obvious. You might think the end of the climb brings relief, clarity, redemption. But the truth, the hidden pulse of it all, is far more twisted. The victories that glitter, the power that hums through his veins, they're illusions. They're the sound of chains sliding silently over polished floors. You feel it in your gut, don't you? That shift between awe and unease, the understanding that the high you crave might also be the trap. And while you watch, while you lean in closer, you realize that this story, your story too, maybe, is built on these small, almost invisible reversals. He moves through the hallways of his own triumphs, head high, fists ready, but inside there's a gnawing emptiness. You can almost hear it, can't you? A hollow echo of what was once fire, now quiet, patient, relentless. The glory that once blinded him to pain now illuminates it in sharp, unforgiving lines. The very force he used to carve his identity has rewritten the rules. The world doesn't see it. You do. And that's why you need to stay tuned, why it's crucial to notice every shift, every subtle micro-movement in thought and action. Stay with me until the end, because the next revelation isn't about strength. It's about what happens when strength becomes the cage, when the very thing that defined you starts erasing the parts of yourself you never wanted to lose. You can sense it in the details, the half-smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the way he tightens his jaw, the pauses between breaths that stretch just a fraction too long. Every act of dominance, every moment of outward victory, is shadowed by absence. The emptiness hides in plain sight, behind the impact of what seems like progress, the thrill of transformation, the mental high of power and control. And as you watch, as you feel it in your own chest, the suspense gnaws at you, the realization sinks deeper. This peak, this apex, isn't the summit of understanding. It's a precipice. And he's standing right at the edge, maybe unaware, maybe too proud to see it, but you? You feel the pull, the tension, the cliff of awareness that teases just beyond what's visible. You can almost reach out to him, can't you? Feel the pulse of his isolation, the subtle fracture beneath the armor, the invisible prison walls closing quietly around every thought, every decision, every heartbeat. And while it seems he's at the height of everything, you know better. The rage that once gave him identity now demands obedience. The glory that dazzled the world now sharpens the loneliness into something almost tangible, something you could almost touch if you leaned in close enough. Stay with me until the end, because what comes next will shift everything you thought you knew about strength, rage, and survival. It's in the quiet corners, in the subtle fractures, in the invisible revelations that linger like smoke over the ruins of what once felt like freedom. And as you sit there, feeling it, sensing it, reflecting, you notice your own reactions. The empathy, the recognition, the subtle fear of seeing yourself in him. The pattern of transformation, the weight of decisions, the truth hidden in plain sight, all of it ripples through your awareness. And even as the peak seems solid, even as you watch him stand tall, you feel the tension, the suspense, the unspoken knowledge that the journey doesn't end here. The force has become a prison, the glory a shadow, the rage both guide and jailer. And somewhere in that tension, in that quiet, visceral space, the next revelation waits, and you know it will demand your full attention. You notice it first in the silence. The empty spaces where voices used to echo, the faint hum of a world that keeps moving while he stands still. He pushed them all away, didn't he? Friends, allies, people who might have understood a fraction of the fire gnawing at him, gone. The walls he built with his fists, with his pride, with the force of his anger finally close in. And now there's only him. The echo of himself. You feel it too, that unsettling quiet that settles heavy, like smoke curling into lungs you can't clear. You lean in and it's almost suffocating, almost sacred. The solitude doesn't forgive, doesn't explain. Just waits. And in that waiting, the first glimpses of truth begin to stir. The rage that once defined him now twists into something else. It's quieter but sharper. The fire that made him feel alive now exposes the hollow behind his eyes, the subtle tremor in his jaw. Each breath is heavier, a reminder that the power he wielded as armor was never real protection. You feel it, right? That creeping realization that the strength you envy is also a kind of punishment. And the irony bites. The very force that gave him identity now isolates him, strips him down to the raw, unguarded self he tried to forget existed. You can almost hear it, can't you? The soft echo of his heartbeat against empty walls, a rhythm that used to sync with fury now marking the slow unraveling of certainty. He moves through the space like a ghost, testing the boundaries he set, finding nothing but mirrors. The echo of the void answers him, reflecting every misstep, every unspoken regret, every decision he tried to bury beneath glory and rage. You feel the pull of it in your chest, the same tension that makes you lean forward, almost wanting to step inside his mind, almost wanting to understand the magnitude of what he's facing. And that's when the real collapse begins, not loud, not explosive. It's subtle. A twitch in the corner of his mouth, a hesitation in thought, the way his hands linger in midair like he's searching for something that isn't there. You notice it, how every small movement carries the weight of years of suppressed pain, the consequences of choices made in fire, the cost of identity built on anger. The mental landscape is shifting like tectonic plates under fragile ground. One moment he's steady, almost untouchable. The next he's faltering, almost afraid of his own reflection. You feel that too, the precarious pull of a transformation you can't stop watching, a collapse that fascinates and terrifies at the same time. The silence teaches what words never could. Every victory, every strike, every proud moment he clung to like life itself, now speaks in whispers. A truth he tried to ignore, a revelation that gnaws at the edges of his mind. And in that whisper, you sense the echo of the void he carries, the part of himself he tried to anesthetize with rage. That hollow space, once hidden behind movement and power, is now impossible to avoid. It hums, it pulses, it waits for acknowledgement. And when he finally faces it, when the mask slips and the armor dissolves, the intensity is almost unbearable. You feel it in your gut, the weight of recognition, the ache of seeing someone confront a part of themselves you've glimpsed in your own darkest hours. Isolation becomes both sentence and teacher. He wanders the corridors of memory and impulse, reliving battles, reconsidering decisions, sensing the truth hidden behind every impact he's made on the world and himself. And while the world outside keeps spinning, he's trapped in the intensity of his own consciousness, every revelation, every subtle insight, amplified in the echo chamber of solitude. You can almost hear him think, was this what I wanted? Was this what strength meant? The answer isn't coming gently. It scratches, it prods, it waits for the moment he can no longer avoid it. And yet, even as the collapse deepens, even as the silence presses in, there's a strange kind of clarity emerging. Not comfort, not relief, but clarity. The kind that cuts through illusion and exposes the undercurrents of thought, the hidden decisions, the mental habits that shaped his rise and fall. You can feel it too, the subtle thrill of witnessing a mind confront its own patterns, the pulse of empathy, the ache of shared recognition. The collapse becomes almost hypnotic, a mirror reflecting not just him but fragments of yourself, your choices, your moments of rage and pride and isolation. And just as you begin to sense a kind of end, a closure in the intensity, you realize it's not the end at all. The void doesn't release easily. The solitude doesn't forgive fully. The collapse is not a finale, it's a doorway, a threshold. And through it, the next layer of revelation waits, dark, patient, unavoidable. You lean in, feel it, sense it, understand it. What looks like an ending is only the beginning of the real confrontation. The part no one else sees, the part that shapes identity from the inside out, the part that questions everything he thought he knew about himself. You feel it first like a draft slipping through a crack in the floorboards, a sense of stillness that wasn't there before. He stops. Really stops. No battles, no adversaries, no chaos calling for his attention. Just silence. The kind of silence that presses against your ears and squeezes your chest. And in that space, in that pause, he realizes something terrifying. There's nothing out there. The enemies, the fights, the challenges, they were never real. Not really. Just shadows, echoes, the shapes his own fear took when he didn't know how to face himself. And you feel that too, The sudden vertigo of truth, the dizziness of recognizing that the world's pressure sometimes isn't the weight you feel, it's the weight you carry inside. Then nothing stretches before him like a vast empty ocean, and he steps closer, hesitant, toes skimming the surface of some invisible boundary. The mind wants to flee, wants to find an opponent, a reason, a target. It craves distraction. But there's none. The quiet refuses to be broken. You can almost hear it whispering through the corridors of his consciousness, through the spaces he tried to fill with anger, pride, and action. And it's beautiful in a cruel way, isn't it? The nothing is liberation, but it's also a sentence. Freedom and condemnation in the same heartbeat. He looks at himself then, really looks, like a stranger in the mirror whose face he's worn but never truly seen. The mental habits, the decisions, the patterns of rage and control, they shimmer under the weight of awareness. He understands, in a flash, that all the battles, all the victories, all the transformations he chased were just attempts to escape the void inside. But understanding doesn't fix it. Not here. Not now. You feel that knot in your gut, right? That visceral twist of empathy and fear, the ache of knowing the mind can recognize the truth and still be powerless against it. And the quiet, it's heavy. It presses against him, and you sense it pressing against you too, like the gravity of all the untold stories, the unreleased tensions, the fragments of memory he buried under the guise of action. Every heartbeat echoes in the emptiness, and the impact of that realization begins to shift something fundamental. The world outside fades. The past, the expectations, the ghosts of others, they dissolve into irrelevance. Only the raw, unfiltered self remains. And it's terrifying. You feel it, don't you? That precarious mix of fascination and dread, the sensation of witnessing someone confront the void and realizing that the void has been waiting for all of us. Musashi, or maybe you, maybe me, maybe anyone watching, takes a step into that nothingness and suddenly the fear of stillness becomes palpable. The mind thrashes for distraction, for logic, for a sound, a movement, a fight. But the void doesn't yield. It doesn't comfort. It doesn't answer. It only reflects, exposing the decisions, the transformations, the false shields we've constructed over time. And while it seems he might find peace in this exposure, you know better. That clarity, that confrontation with the nothing, isn't a salvation. It's a crucible. You feel it deep in your chest. The subtle ache, the raw edge of recognition that understanding alone doesn't protect you from what comes next. The nothing stretches further, and yet he steps, and you follow step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat, because the pull is undeniable. The mind races with questions it can't fully articulate. What if the enemies were never real? What if every impact, every strike, every choice was just preparation for facing yourself? The truth is heavy. It hums in the silence. And as he pauses, as you pause, the intensity tightens like a fist around your awareness. The revelations in the quiet corners of the mind are sharp, almost impossible to ignore. And there it is, the subtle twist that leaves a mark you can't unsee. You feel like he's on the verge of understanding it all, that he's grasped the truth of the void. But the void doesn't release its lessons that easily. Understanding doesn't save. The fear, the emptiness, the reflection of all the rage, pride, and isolation that led him here, they remain patient, unyielding. You sense it creeping under your skin, the way the revelation hits and the weight doesn't lift. That's the cruel beauty of it. That's the tension that keeps you leaning in, your pulse synced with his, your breath caught in the folds of unspoken truths. He stands there, staring into nothing, and the nothing stares back. And as you watch, you realize the journey isn't about enemies or battles. It's about confronting what you can't run from, about the silent force that shapes identity, about the impact of staring into the void without flinching. But you also realize deep down that understanding it won't spare him. The real trial, the real transformation, is just beginning. And somewhere in that tension, that stillness, that piercing emptiness, the next revelation waits, patient and unavoidable, whispering truths that will demand everything, that will reshape everything, that will change what he thought he knew about himself forever. You feel the pulse before you see it, the subtle shift in the air, the almost imperceptible tremor that tells you something is unraveling. He blinks, slow, deliberate, and for a fleeting moment the veil lifts. Flash after flash, shards of understanding pierce the haze. The battles, the victories, the anger that once defined him, they were never enough. They couldn't be. Every decision, every strike, every carefully crafted identity was a desperate attempt to fill a hollow that wasn't physical, wasn't external. It was a void lodged deep in the soul, invisible yet consuming, and he's been chasing the shadows of it his entire life. You can feel that desperation yourself, that creeping realization that sometimes the things we fight hardest for are illusions crafted by our own mind. The illusion of control flickers before his eyes. Every plan, every calculated move, every instance where he thought he was steering the tide of his existence. It was all theater, a fragile construct built to hide how small and unmoored he truly felt. And you notice the way it gnaws at him, that mix of awe and horror as the foundations crumble. The mind seeks patterns, craves explanations, but here in the fragments, there are no neat answers. The revelations hit like cold waves. The control was never real, the power was borrowed, the victories were only mirrors reflecting pieces of a self he refused to acknowledge. You feel the bite of it too, the same ache echoing in your own chest because seeing someone dismantle themselves so thoroughly makes you question your own illusions. Then comes the truth, sharp and relentless, cutting through the half-light. The void is inherent. It doesn't appear when you fail, it doesn't vanish with success, it's woven into the fabric of being. He steps back, breath hitching, heart hammering against ribs like a warning drum. And the revelation doesn't comfort, it doesn't illuminate, it wounds. It's the cruel clarity that maybe he has been looking for the wrong kind of resolution all along. You lean closer, drawn into the intimate terror of it, feeling the raw impact of the truth before he even fully admits it to himself. There's beauty in the pain, sure, but it's the kind that twists in the gut, makes you swallow hard, and forces you to reckon with shadows you'd rather ignore. The flashes come faster now, fragmenting perception. Memories, regrets, glimpses of decisions that seemed small but were seismic. They all crash together, a storm of understanding that never promised comfort. He sees himself, the rage, the isolation, the pride masquerading as survival. And he sees the consequences, the ripple effects, the subtle wounds he inflicted on himself and on others without ever realizing. The mind strains to process, to hold the pieces together, but the fragments refuse to settle. You can feel the tension in the air, the way the revelations press against your consciousness, almost tactile, almost dangerous. And yet, even as the clarity sharpens, the darkness begins to creep back in. It's subtle at first, a shadow at the edge of the flash, a cold whisper at the back of thought, but it grows. Just when you think the path is illuminated, just when you feel you've glimpsed the heart of the void, it stretches again, pulling you into questions that can't be answered. The comfort of comprehension is fleeting. The void doesn't yield, it simply evolves, and he realizes that understanding alone won't protect him from its return. You feel it too, the creeping dread, the sense that clarity is just a pause in a longer storm. The fragments continue to dance, each one a revelation, each one a reminder that the journey was never about conquering the void, it was about confronting it, moment by moment, in ways that are never fully complete. The truth is both liberating and punishing. The emptiness he tried to escape is a constant companion, inherent, unavoidable, and yet it also holds the potential for insight, for transformation, for a mental landscape stripped of illusions. But transformation doesn't happen in a single flash. It's cumulative, visceral, an accumulation of choices, realizations, and confrontations that force him to reckon with what he really is, not what he hoped to be. And in the hush between flashes, in the tension of this half-lit revelation, there's a weight, a pull, a magnetism that demands attention. The void isn't ending, it's evolving. It tests, it reshapes, it forces a reckoning you can almost feel yourself leaning into. The fragments settle enough for a breath, enough to understand a piece of the truth, and yet, as you exhale, as he exudes a faint shimmer of comprehension, the darkness gathers again. It's patient, insistent, unavoidable. You realize, just as he realizes, that the fragments were never meant to provide closure. They were meant to prepare him, to prepare you for the truths that wait in the next wave of confrontation, the revelations that will demand more than understanding. They will demand surrender, reflection, and the courage to face what cannot be changed. The silence stretches. The fragments shimmer. The void waits. And in that space, in the pressure, in the subtle tremor of awareness, you feel the pull of what's coming, the next phase of reckoning where the shadows of identity, the echoes of rage, and the residue of pride converge. It's intimate, it's raw, it's unavoidable, and you lean closer because the pull of the story isn't just curiosity, it's the sense that this truth is something you share, that the revelations he confronts are yours to witness, yours to feel, yours to inhabit, moment by fragmentary moment. And as you sit there, feeling the weight of what he's uncovering, I need you to hear this, because you're not just watching. You're in this with him. Every heartbeat, every tremor of understanding, it's echoing inside you too. If this story resonates, if it scratches that part of you that's been restless, afraid, questioning, then don't let it fade into the scroll. Hit that subscribe not because it's a routine but because you want to be here for the truths that are still waiting. Truths that pull at the edges of your mind and refuse to let go. When you subscribe, you're not just following a channel. You're stepping into the shadows with us, witnessing the cracks, the revelations, the transformations as they unfold. You'll see the decisions that fracture the soul, the mental battles no one talks about, the truths hidden in silence. And every story you stick with, every episode you feel in your chest, it builds a thread connecting you to this community, a space where it's okay to explore the fear, the doubt, the curiosity without judgment. Imagine it, you sitting here, part of this shared understanding, knowing that the next layer of the journey is already waiting for you. Every insight, every revelation, every shadow revealed, it's yours too if you choose to be here. That's why subscribing matters. Not for numbers, not for clicks, but so that the story continues. So that the next fragment, the next confrontation with the void, the next glimpse into the truths that haunt us, reaches you. And you'll need to be ready. Because the path ahead doesn't forgive distractions. It demands attention, heart, and presence. The stories don't pause for casual observers. They unfold for those who are willing to follow, who are willing to feel, who are willing to stay with the tension, the fear, the revelation. And I promise the journey is only getting darker, sharper, more intimate. You'll see things you didn't expect. You'll feel things you can't unfeel. And through it all, you won't be alone. You'll be part of a group that understands the pull of these shadows, that understands the hunger for insight, that understands the ache of confronting what lies beneath the surface. So if you're ready to step deeper, to witness everything the void reveals, to follow every thread of transformation, every decision that splits a life apart and pieces it back together, you know what to do. It's simple but it's powerful. Don't just watch from the edges. Be here. Be present. Subscribe. And as you do, you become part of the story, part of the reckoning, part of a shared experience that doesn't end with this episode. You're building the bridge to the next revelation, the next shadow, the next truth no one else dares to show. Because this isn't just a channel. It's a place for those who feel the weight, who crave the understanding, who need the confrontation. And you belong here. You notice it first in the way he exhales, slow, deliberate, as if each breath is a negotiation with the air itself. The rage that fueled him, that once lit fires in his veins and sharpened every decision, now lies dormant, not because he has conquered it, but because he's simply too tired to carry it anymore. There's no triumph here, no burst of illumination, just the quiet settling of something worn down, like a storm finally spent. And in that quiet, you feel it too, the eerie calm, the unsettling pause that carries its own weight. You can almost hear the echoes of battles past, the muted hum of victories that meant nothing, the shadows of choices that shaped him without mercy. The collapse comes slowly, like gravity pulling on bones you didn't know were weak. Every movement feels deliberate and hollow, a mirror of the internal landscape he's been running from for decades. And you recognize it, you felt it yourself at some point, the exhaustion that isn't relief, the silence that isn't peace, the surrender that isn't victory. It's raw, intimate, visceral, and you can't look away. The void doesn't vanish, it merely shifts. It folds itself into the corners of his mind, creeping into the spaces between thought and memory, whispering truths he doesn't want to hear but can't ignore. He moves through the day as if touching ghosts, tracing the outlines of what he once believed defined him. Every decision is lighter now because the burden of rage has been replaced by the subtle weight of emptiness. And yet there's a strange clarity in this collapse. The frenzy of anger is gone, leaving behind a reflective stillness that exposes every fracture, every misstep, every illusion that ever masked the void. You feel it too, this unsettling revelation. Sometimes the silence is louder than the scream, and sometimes surrender is more revealing than victory. And yet, even as the quiet settles, there's a tension you can't ignore. It's in the way his gaze lingers too long on nothing, in the subtle tremor of his hands, in the faint shadow that passes over his expression as if something unseen waits just beyond comprehension. This is the delicate stage before rebirth, but not in the sense of hope or triumph. It's a rebirth of awareness, a confrontation with truths that don't comfort, that don't heal, they merely expose. You sense it too, the same undercurrent of unease. Just when it feels like calm has arrived, the void stirs again, testing the boundaries of this fragile cessation. There's a subtle ritual to it, a rhythm that emerges in the stillness. Every pause, every hesitation, every reflection is a thread connecting him to the next stage of reckoning. You watch as the layers peel back, revealing glimpses of transformation, mental shifts, decisions that might never have seemed possible in the chaos of rage. And yet, the void's presence is undeniable, an invisible companion that turns acceptance into a mirror, showing him, and you, what lies beneath the veneer of quiet. And you realize the silence itself carries its own lessons. It's the echo of everything he ran from, the residual impact of choices that seemed irrelevant at the time but now resonate with an almost unbearable weight. The bastidors of his mind, the backstage of pain, fear, and longing, become visible in these moments, like subtle movements in the periphery of vision, almost too delicate to grasp but impossible to ignore. You can feel each revelation like a pulse against your own chest, a reminder that the story doesn't pause for comfort. Yet within this quiet, there's an invitation, almost imperceptible, to lean closer, to inhabit the same space of reflection, to let curiosity mingle with unease. The silence is a crucible, and every sensation, the slight tremor, the faint echo of memory, the subtle awareness of emptiness, is a test. You're drawn into it, compelled to feel what he feels, to question what you would do in the same shadowed corners of existence. And the tension grows, subtle but insistent, hinting at the resurgence of forces that can no longer be ignored. Because even in the quiet, the story does not end. The calm is not redemption, it is the pause before the next confrontation. The void is patient, deliberate, and it waits in the wings, knowing that the momentary surrender will only make the next revelation more potent, more visceral, more impossible to evade. You feel the pull, the magnetism of impending truths, and the anticipation coils tight in your chest, a mirrored shadow of what he will face next. And in that shared tension, in the intimacy of stillness, you sense the inevitability of what's coming. Not as closure, not as peace, but as another wave of confrontation, where every decision, every transformation, every revelation will demand attention and presence in ways that are personal, intimate, and unavoidable. You lean in not because you must, but because the story has claimed you just as it has claimed him. You feel it first in the air, thick and heavy, like the residue of storms that never quite passed. That same tension you felt following him through silence and collapse, through rage and isolation, now curls around you differently, more intimate, almost a whisper meant just for you. The room is still but not empty. Every shadow seems to pulse with memory, every creak of floorboard a subtle reminder of choices you didn't know you made. You think you know him now, and yet, the reflection staring back at you is sharper, more unsettling because you begin to recognize it within yourself. He sits there, quiet, the flicker of candlelight across his face revealing lines that were carved not by time, but by confrontation with his own abyss. The rage that once defined him has faded, leaving a skeletal framework of awareness, fragile but undeniable. You can almost touch it, the residue of battles, the echoes of decisions that felt heroic, that felt necessary, but were only moments of deflection from something far deeper. You lean closer, drawn into the pulse of thought, the rhythm of breath that carries 1,000 silent revelations. It is here, in this stillness, that the story folds back onto itself, reflecting truths you weren't prepared to confront. And you see it now, the void he chased, the rage he wielded, the isolation he embraced. None of it was external. It was always a mirror, a projection of a fear too intimate to name, too raw to face directly. Every victory he celebrated, every opponent he bested, was only a temporary anesthetic for the internal fracture. And as you witness this, you sense your own shadows stretching along the same contours, your own voids waiting for acknowledgement. There is a strange comfort in it, like being handed a map to a territory you've always feared. The weight of it presses, but not in a way that smothers. It asks for engagement, reflection, recognition. You feel the subtle shifts in understanding, the realization that control was an illusion, that every decision carried impact far beyond the immediate moment. Even his quiet collapse now carries a hidden rhythm, a cadence that speaks of transformation, of mental shifts that have happened quietly, in the back rooms of his mind, in the unseen corners where truth lingers. And you are part of it. You inhabit that space, sensing the bastidors, the backstage of every move, every thought, every hidden impulse. And here, in this intimate convergence of awareness, he speaks, not aloud but in the spaces between his silence. It resonates inside you. Maybe you've tried to fill your emptiness with anger too. Maybe you've chased illusions, believed in victories that meant nothing. The words are not accusatory, they are a mirror. You recognize the pattern in yourself, in moments of impatience, of frustration, of quiet despair. And it stings because it is intimate, true, unavoidable. The realization that the void cannot be filled, only understood, echoes like a heartbeat in a room without walls. He leans back, the candle flickers again, and you feel the pull of contemplation. There is no tidy resolution here, no comforting moral. Only awareness, raw and luminous in its precision. And as you sit with it, you understand the subtle invitation. This is not the end. The journey he began, the shadow he faced, it is ongoing. The void waits, patient and deliberate, testing the limits of comprehension and resilience. You notice the rhythm of your own breath, how it syncs with the silence, how the tension within you mirrors the tension he endured. The story folds into you and you feel compelled to reach forward, to continue, to seek. Because perhaps the most dangerous revelation is not what he faced, but what you have yet to face within yourself. The echoes of his choices, his revelations, his void, linger like traces in a hallway you've only begun to explore. And in that lingering awareness, there is a subtle nudge, a quiet guidance that doesn't demand but invites. If you followed him this far, if you felt the weight of anger, isolation, collapse, and revelation, then perhaps you are searching for the same understanding. To see your shadow, to confront it, to explore the truths hidden beneath the surface of everyday decisions, transformations, and revelations. You sit with that thought, the silence wrapping around it, the shadows stretching and bending. And just as you feel you have reached the edge of understanding, a subtle shift reminds you, the story is not complete. The void, the darkness, the shadow, these are companions, not endings. There is more beneath, more to feel, more to question. And in that space between comprehension and mystery, you sense the invitation, almost a whisper. If you've made it here, you're already on the path he walked. The next step awaits, waiting to reveal what the darkness still holds. It is not a conclusion. It is an echo, a pulse, a delicate bridge that connects you to what comes next. The quiet in the room, the weight in your chest, the understanding in your mind, they are all part of the continuation. And as you linger, you realize, the journey is yours as much as his. And the shadow is patient, waiting for your next move, your next insight, your next revelation. You made it here, to the edges of what we dared to look at, and that alone says something about you. If this story stirred something, even a shadow you weren't ready to meet, drop a comment below with something simple, like, I'm with you to the end, or, this hit me hard. Let it be your mark, a small echo of the journey we shared, a reminder that someone else felt it too. It matters more than you know. And if your chest feels heavier or your mind is buzzing with the corners of truth we touched tonight, give the video a like. Not because it's a formality, but because it signals to yourself, to the world, that you showed up, that you faced it, that you acknowledged the shadows alongside him, and alongside yourself. There's more waiting just over there, a piece of this puzzle that continues what we started. A video that will pull at the edges of these same truths, challenge the quiet spaces you think you understand, and maybe push you a little deeper into the shadows that still whisper. Click over and walk through it with me. It's not about finishing, it's about keeping the thread alive, following it, and seeing where the darkness leads next. Because the story isn't done, and neither are you. The void still moves, still waits, still asks questions that don't have answers yet. And if you're ready to keep exploring, to keep feeling, to keep confronting what lingers, then step through. Together we'll meet whatever comes next.